Michael Wolff joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, thank you for
You spoke
having
to
me.
the former president twice for this book, On the Record, I understand. You cover it's before the election, it's election night, and through the insurrection, and even really up until now. Talk about what was going on in the White House while what we were seeing on our TVs on January 6th was playing out.
Well, one of the important things to remember is that there was nobody in the White House. So from November 3rd on to Election Day, November 3rd to January 6th, one of the themes was that everyone that surrounded the president in the West Wing, in the campaign, even his family, were running for the exits. So you had by November 3rd, by Saturday, November 7th, everyone around the president, and let me state that, everyone, 100% of the people around the president knew he had lost the election and nothing that he could do would change that.
Despite what the president himself was saying, all the people around him knew.
So it's, all of them, they knew he was, he had taken a step. I mean, they've always known he was a little, not like you and me, but he had taken a step further. So he was not in the present reality. Everybody knew this, and everybody was trying to create enormous distance between themselves and the president, and this includes his family. So by the time you got to January 6th, there was literally the White House, it was crickets, nobody there.
That morning, his kids had come in order to attend the rally.
Exactly.
And you write in the book that they sort of arrived with, while celebrating this, crazy 4-year experience.
Yeah, no. I mean, this was valedictory to them. This was, let's celebrate. We've had this incredible thing has happened to us. There was none on their part. There was no grievance. There was no, we're going to take this back. We deserve this.
Despite what Don Jr. was saying at the rally on that day.
Totally. They were just, you have to go through this thing. You have to say what the president expects you to say. But at the same time, you live in the real world. It's only the president with Rudy Giuliani who is not living in the real world.
You also write that it seemed like the president had contempt for, in some ways, the protesters who had come to support him on January 6th.
Yeah, well, he's always looked at these people and saying, they have tattoos, they have piercings, they dress in these costumes. Donald Trump is a man who wears a suit. So he sees them as, these are fans. They're like,
so
rock and
all
roll
this
acts.
talk about...
They see the fans, and, fans are great because they do what fans do, and they jump up and down, and they're emotional in a way that lends legitimacy to the act itself. But Donald Trump is not going to have lunch with these people.
Which is, it makes it all the more obviously hypocritical, but also just kind of sad that all these people have traveled to Washington, D.C. to, support the president and believe that the president sees them and feels them and loves them. And you're saying he's...
Well, I think it's more complicated than that. Just think of the president as a performer. It is wrong to think of the president as a politician. Wrong to think of the president as the president.
You think you think we don't see the former president through the right lens?
Absolutely. We have tried to fit him into this thing. As much as we've disliked him, as much as we oppose him, we still see him as a politician trying to accomplish specific goals. He is not doing that. Or his entire goal is to court the attention of his fan base, which he has successfully done, and he does. This is one of the big mysteries, the ongoing mysteries, is how has he so consummately channeled this incredibly large group of Americans. And he's done it outside of politics. The language he's speaking is not the language of politics.
You write about the outdoor rally speech on January 6th. He talked about walking to the Capitol with protesters, which in the book you say was something that he ad-libbed, that it wasn't a planned remark. You write, He added that part, the walk. After this, we're going to walk down and I'll be there with you. The walk wasn't in the text. The entourage heard little else. The hundreds upon hundreds of hours of Trump rallies that they had all been subjected to blurred into the usual blah, blah. But they heard that line, the walk. He did not mean this, of course. Trump didn't walk anywhere. The we was figurative. That was just something he said on the fly, which was obviously incredibly consequential.
Very, very much so, and very much. I mean, that was that old thing about not taking him literally, which he in fact comes off the stage and his chief of staff said, "Hey, we can't do this. There's no security for this." And he goes, "What? What are you talking about?" And he said, "Walking." And he said, "Oh, well, I didn't mean that literally." And for everyone around him, it was really the big tip-off was a walk. Really, Trump walks nowhere. Again, whenever he speaks, he's always throwing out these things. What gets the response? Again, it's all playing to the audience.
Also, I mean, Vice President, as we know, was in a secure location, the Capitol, and I mean, did he even care that Pence was there? Do you know?
Well, he was.
Yes,
he was actually. That's sort of the main background to January 6th. Is he's totally focused on Mike Pence.
He cared in the sense that he wanted Pence to overturn the election, not Pence's safety.
No. I mean, he wasn't even thinking. I mean, he was still right up until the end thinking Pence was gonna throw out the electoral votes and install him as the president.
Because that's what Giuliani was telling him even on that day.
Totally. And they had gone through session after session after session with Mike Pence saying, "I am not going to do that." Even that morning, he calls Pence and finds Pence in the middle of the session of Pence and his people writing the statement that will come out during the president's speech saying publicly, "We're not going to do this." But at that moment, he is still saying, "You've got to do this. I know you're going to do this. Do this." And he's saying it in this really mean way and insulting Pence's manhood and patriotism, and yet still believing this will happen.
Rudy Giuliani, I mean, the way he's portraying the book, I mean, you've said he's basically drunk all the time.
Drunk all the time. Yes, absolutely.
It's incredible that the President of the United States is, if that's the case, that he's relying on this guy who he has now, by your reporting, completely cut himself off from.
Yeah, and the president actually sort of knows this as much as the president is in some outer space himself. He knows Giuliani is drunk. He knows Giuliani has
the president
all
doesn't
kinds
like drinking.
All kinds of sort of focus problems. He knows Rudy is a mess. But that doesn't make any difference because the key thing is who will say what the president wants to hear. He's always shopping for that. And at the end of the day, in this situation when no one would say what the president wanted to hear, except Rudy.
Are you surprised that the former president spoke to you? I mean, he obviously, didn't he threaten to sue you after your first book? I mean, your first book had incredible details in it. They denied, saying that they had talked to you.
He tried to stop the publication of my book. The only time in the history of the Republic that a president of the United States has tried to stop a book from being published.
Were you surprised that he agreed to speak, or is it in character that he wants to try to control the narrative?
Well, I'll tell you how this. So I had been speaking to people around the president, and one of them reported to him that I was doing this book, and what the president said was, "Oh, that guy gets ratings. Let's see him." So again, there's no content here. It's just about the audience.
He knew that people would read it, people would pay attention to what you were saying.
Absolutely. And he has this belief.